A man is packing some belongings as pensive music plays. He maneuvers around boxes, wrapping, and a ladder, all while we get a glimpse of some portraits placed around the house. A clock ticks as he sits down and looks at what's left of the place. In a grocery store, workers and customers are going about their duties in their respective aisles. The still present black and white filter adds an interesting touch, making the atmosphere almost poetic. The man we just saw is here too, browsing the sauce aisle. In comes a woman, seemingly lost as she takes a look at the many products at her disposal. They make eye contact, and it soon becomes clear that these two know each other. She's eager and willing to start a conversation, if a bit shy. Mustering up the courage, she calls his name, Jim. Jim greets her back, and we learn that her name is Amanda. Their encounter has an air of friendliness, but something about it feels tense. The two try to catch up, but their conversation doesn't quite pick up. Stuttering through his questions, Jim asks Amanda how she's been and what she's up to. She tells him she's here to see her sister, Alyssa. They try to make small talk, but it just doesn't work. Eventually, the two part ways with an awkward hug. Jim leaves the store, muttering a swear word under his breath. Unfortunately for him, the first thing he sees when he makes his way to the parking lot is Amanda, who's putting away her stuff into her car. She seems expectant, almost like she wants to continue their conversation from earlier, as she watches him walk towards her. But it's not her that he's walking to, but his car that's parked right in front of hers. Awkward. Fortunately for her, Jim seems to share her sentiment about wanting to talk some more. He asks her out for coffee, and she agrees. A smile forms on her face. They're at the coffee shop now. They came here right from the store. In the bathroom, Jim is giving himself a short pep talk in the mirror. Amanda fidgets with her tea bag as she starts the conversation. She lands on a pretty heavy opener, telling him she heard about what happened to his mom. Apparently, she passed away from a chronic illness. He didn't take the loss too hard, it seems. She's been sick for a while, so he was prepared for it. He's been clearing out her house, the same house we saw at the beginning of the film. He's a house renovator, so he's looking to fix the place up and sell it. His mood is on the uptick as he talks about his job, and she notices and points it out with a smile. He tells her that he lives in Tucson now. She says her parents live in Florida now, but they might move back since her sister is having a baby. She's here to support her sister, too. The topic change opens up some space for them to talk about marriage. He's not married, he reveals. Throughout the conversation, it's evident that Amanda knows him well. She notices his fidgeting and erratic nature, and with good intentions, she asks him if he's okay. He reassures her that he's fine before asking her about her husband. She's surprised that he brought him up, but she answers him anyway. Her husband, Chris, is a wonderful guy, she says. He had 2 sons when she met him, and she took them under her wing. Even Chris's ex-wife was great. It seems like a perfect marriage. He's happy for her, really, but he can't stop his fidgeting. She playfully tells him to stop. It seems like the dynamic the two have, or at least used to have back when they were close, was fun and lighthearted. He walks her back to her car, and we're privy to the cozy little places and roads this small town has. They're reminiscing as they walk. As they talk, it's clear that they shared a lot of memories together, way back when. They spot a man named Wayne through a small store's window. They bet on whether Wayne remembers them, with Jim betting a $100 that he doesn't remember them. Jim clearly underestimated the old man's memory, and Amanda is prepared to leave the store $100 richer. They make their way to the beverage section, picking up foreign beers from all over the globe. As they're paying for their drinks, Wayne calls them lovebirds, alluding to a romantic relationship the two seem to have had. He asks them if they're still together, and to our surprise, Amanda says they are. It seems like she isn't over her childhood sweetheart. Their unexpected meeting reopened her heart to all the great times the two had together, her loving husband seemingly forgotten. She says they've been together for 24 years, and Jim takes it in stride, no hesitation. He still cherishes her as much as she does him. They leave the store with free beers, the old man extending his generosity to the alleged couple. The two are thankful to be received with such love. Beers now in hand, Jim and Amanda continue their walk around the town, chatting about all the places they used to visit and meals they enjoy together. Now at a lake, the two sit on some rocks. Having had her fill of conversations about the past, Amanda now wants to talk about the future. She asks him if he's moving back to Tucson. Fidgeting with his beard once again, he tells her he's unsure about his plans and his job. He admits that he's been thinking about moving back here ever since he saw his mom's place again. He has no concrete plan for it, and she starts to probe about what possible career he could have here. He's a bit defensive, but her concerns come from a good place. She says he seems lost, and when she asks him if there's something he wants to do, it seems like a wall breaks. He raises his voice, swearing and saying he doesn't know what he's doing. He lost his job and had a falling out with his uncle, he admits. His uncle stole some clients from him, and when he found out, he physically assaulted him. He feels awful about it, but Amanda backs off and doesn't blame him for it. He gets emotional easily, it seems. He blames the lack of head rubs he used to get from her for it, in an attempt to lighten the mood. He also tells her it's hard for him to open up about this because of how impressed he is with her life. She tells him about a little boy she encountered on the plane here. The boy was angry, screaming and stomping his feet all while sobbing. She wasn't irritated by the boy, but instead jealous of his ability to express himself so freely. Jim cracks a joke, saying the boy is his soulmate, referencing his irritable nature. She says that at some point, people learn to stop being so callous about their feelings. He hands her back the jelly bean bag they got from the store. He left her all the pink and purple ones, her favorites. He still remembers. She gets a text from Alyssa, who's wondering when Amanda is coming back with the groceries. She's waiting for the ice cream Amanda bought her. Amanda says she'll tell her she ran into someone, and Jim takes slight offense at the lack of specificity. To soothe his worries, Amanda says she'll mention that it was him she ran into. Alyssa remembers him too, it seems. She wants a picture of him, actually, but Amanda doesn't press him about it. He looks rough, and they both know it. Despite Alyssa asking Amanda when she'll be back, Amanda tells him that she wants to see the house. After some thought, Jim doesn't take her up on the offer immediately. He tells her it was great seeing her again, but he doesn't need her pity. He doesn't want her spending time with him in an attempt to make him feel better about his loss. Amanda doesn't reply and instead looks at him with a kind gaze. Whatever it is that made the two separate, it's clear that there are no hard feelings between them now. Their understanding of each other runs deep and true. As it turns out, Jim decides to take Amanda to his place after all. After a walk through the wilderness, the two find themselves at his mother's house. She's seemingly familiar with a lot of the items around the house. She doesn't approach them with the kind of caution or shyness one would expect from a practical stranger. She must have been close with his mom too, it seems. He tells her about his remodeling plans, and she listens. He goes to the bathroom again, a nervous habit, maybe, and she makes her way down the stairs. She finds a VHS tape lying around and pockets it. Her face is thoughtful and serious as she makes her way through the huge room, eyes landing on trinkets and old photographs. The kitchen is in a terrible state, but the romance novel collection she sees stops her from dwelling about it for too long. He tells her his mom started collecting them when he left town. They start talking about Amanda's previous penchant for romance novels, specifically Wuthering Heights. She made him read the novel and even sent him a 4-page long essay in which she compared them to the main characters. He teases her about it, and she takes it in stride instead of being offended. She picks up a book from the shelf, opening it to a random page and reading the lines out loud. The two laugh at the ridiculous writing, Amanda noting that it can't be compared to the literary masterpiece that is Wuthering Heights. She asks him why he wants to get rid of them. He says they serve as a sort of memento mori for him. There are about 800 books on that shelf, and even if he wanted to, he couldn't finish them all in his lifetime. He wasn't trying to be morbid, but the atmosphere instantly changes because of his remark. She tries to ease his thoughts, telling him he could at least make it through one section if he read fast enough. Needing a break from the dark talk, Amanda steps outside to make a phone call. Jim starts cleaning around the kitchen, all the while listening to Amanda talk to her husband. She tells him about Alyssa and how she's doing with her pregnancy. She catches Jim watching her through the window. It startles her enough that she moves away from his sight and asks her husband to repeat what he just said. Jim takes the hint and busies himself with the never-ending supply of boxes he has around the house. Amanda is back inside now, making her way to Jim's childhood bedroom. They laugh at the black light and old TV there, making references to old movies and songs they used to enjoy. She finds his closet, which is apparently filled with every single shirt he wore in high school. It seems like his mom kept them as a sort of memorabilia. As she browses the clothes, she points out some of his shirts she used to wear, and funnily enough, some shirts he stole from her too. She finds his old diary, and he tells her to respect his privacy and refrain from opening it. He's not serious about it though. He stands there and watches her open the notebook, reading his writing aloud. He closes his ears and leaves the room as she continues reading. She lands on a passage about his former lover, none other than Amanda. The writing is sweet and driven by infatuation. Realization sets into her heart, hit by the intense love he shared for her once upon a time. It's a love she no doubt reciprocated, if the tender words and looks she shared with him today are anything to go by. She finds a stack of papers in the closet, mostly photographs. Amongst the photographs, she finds a sealed letter. It's unclear if she's familiar with it, but her curiosity is set off enough for her to pocket the letter before Jim enters the room with 2 fresh beers. She finds a record player too, and the two sit on the bed, ready to listen to the terrific songs they made 20-something years ago. They're cringeworthy and badly made, without a doubt, but it's worth sitting through for the smiles and laughs they get out of it. The tape shifts to a conversation between them. The conversation involves them role-playing as an older couple on their anniversary, with Jim complaining about work and Amanda offering food to cheer him up. It should be awkward, listening to them being in love and hopeful about having a relationship well into the future. But Jim and Amanda aren't laughing about it or trying to crack jokes. They're just sitting there listening, probably recalling the day they recorded that tape. Their conversation on the tape has moved on to their made-up children named Jessica and Jason. They're smiling at each other as they listen. The two are all soft and happy with the imaginary scenario they're playing out, maybe a bit regretful that it never happened like they planned. At the end of the tape, they promise to be together for 80, even 120 more years. They're sitting on the porch now, watching a train fly by over their shabby town. She's looking at him with an intense gaze, and he asks her what she's thinking about. She tells him it was unnerving to listen to the tape recording, but she says it with a laugh. According to her, she can't recognize the person she was in that tape, but he says he remembers that person very well. She was really fun and great, something she can't personally relate to now, despite her comfortable life. He understands what she means, and maybe he feels that way too, because he asks her if she's up to have some fun tonight. She takes him up on the offer. She brings up the ice cream she was supposed to bring Alyssa all those hours ago, only to say she can go without it. The two decide to eat at home, role-playing as a married couple. Clad in his mother's apron, Amanda fixes them a quick meal and sets up a candlelit dinner. Jim enters the house, shouting, "Honey, I'm home." She tells him to close his eyes before he comes downstairs, claiming she has a surprise for him. The two begin to talk about their days, and when the table is set, she brings him down and tells him to open his eyes. He feigns a gasp at the sight of ramen noodles and eggs. It's not very impressive, but it's probably the only thing Amanda could make out of whatever he had in the kitchen. He asks her what the special occasion is, and lo and behold, she reminds him that it's their 20th anniversary. The two kiss awkwardly before digging in. They start chatting about their days, and Jim continues his rant about work, referencing the tape they listened to today. She tells him her music career is going to get a head start, with her opening for a tour. She tells him to quit his job and join her to tour. The two start planning their adventure around the country. They're very into the pretend scenario, and halfway through, Jim cracks a joke that sends food flying out of Amanda's mouth. To her chagrin, he has a surprise for their anniversary too. The surprise comes in the form of a CD inserted into his radio player. The smile on their faces is instantaneous, and they join hands to dance to the song, all while singing their own parody rendition. She thanks him for their present, remembering their prom dance. They continue their dance sesh, goofing around the house and rearranging furniture to make room for their silly moves. He piles on some of his clothes and hats on her, and by the end of their impromptu dance battle, they're exhausted and elated. Now relaxing on the couch, Amanda gives Jim her famous scalp massage he talked about on the rocks. When she's done, she complains about how she's done this for him a million times, but he hasn't done it for her even once. Determined to save himself from the slander, he stretches his arms and hands, preparing to give her the greatest scalp massage known to man. He begins his routine, claiming he can read her character through feeling the divots of her scalp. The first thing he notices is that she's a terrible cook. Next, he notices that she's an animal lover. She tells him he's cheating, since she already told him she runs a dog rescue. He asks to learn more about the pups, and she obliges. She says it was her husband's idea to open the rescue. He brings up the greyhound, Teddy, he used to have, and she tells him they don't really take in breeds like that. They focus on simpler breeds, that way it's manageable for their small organization. He says it's sad that she has to do that, seeing as she has always loved greyhounds. She agrees, saying she's always felt understood by them. For some inexplicable reason, she thinks they understand her struggles with the world. They always made her feel better and were a great source of comfort. She's close to tears as she talks about how you can rehabilitate a greyhound so easily. You can take the most sick and elderly greyhound to the beach, and once their paw touches sand and their collar is off, they will run like never before. It's beautiful, she thinks, and he says she should think about working with them despite it not being practical. Their conversation ends there, and so does the day. It's dark outside now, and the vacant town is lit only by the windows of the small houses and stores littering the area. Their cars are still in the grocery store's parking lot. They're the only cars there, left forgotten and facing each other under the dark expanse of sky. Amanda and Jim have abandoned the living room in favor of Jim's truck. They lie there underneath the stars, bundled in clothes to protect them from the harsh weather. She makes a confession, one that she can barely choke out. She's been on antidepressants for a while, she discloses. He listens to her speak, arm around her shoulder, as she tells him things she's never told anyone before. She feels too embarrassed to tell anyone else, even her husband, given the state of her life. It's perfect on paper, no flaws to be found, but she's still unhappy. There's a sadness inside of her that feels alien. The antidepressants make her feel weird, but they stop her from crying, at least. He asks her why she doesn't talk to her husband about it. She says there was a time when she would have told him, but things have changed, and they're still changing. Their sons will both be in college soon, and her husband is getting old. It's significant enough for her to feel like she's drifting away from a life she once thought to be idyllic. She doesn't want to spend the rest of her life taking care of an elderly husband. He listens without interrupting, offering understanding words and comforting touches. She switches topic, and with a grin on her face, she thanks him for the great night they had. She thanks him for remembering what jelly beans she likes most, and for listening to her worries without judgment. She tells him she wants to hear his thoughts, and he tells her he was thinking about their first time. It was there in that truck, near a lake, and they were both 16. They joke about their then lack of experience. Then, Jim reveals a piece of his heart to her. He tells her he never felt for others what he felt for her. It was never the same with anyone else. She was special. He tries to pin it on nostalgia, alluding to the fact that people tend to view the past through rose-colored glasses. But she reveals that it's the same for her. He's special to her too, magical, even. With tears in her eyes, she asks him to kiss her, and he does. They make out all the way back to his bedroom. When they land on his bed, he confesses that he loves her. She doesn't say it back, to his disappointment. In fact, she says no, sitting up and facing away from him. She's clearly distressed about the predicament they're in. The love and magic they relive this night isn't enough to shield her from the real world. A world where she has children, a husband, and a pregnant sister waiting for her. A world where she has expectations she has to live up to. She throws his jacket on the bed, making her way out of the room. His sweater she was wearing is discarded, and with it, so too are his proposals to sit down and talk about it. She grabs her coat off the sofa, and it sends the letter she pocketed all those hours ago flying onto the floor. He grabs it, asking her where she got it from. He can't believe that she took it from his closet without telling him. It's addressed to her, she emphasizes, claiming the right to have it. She wanted to read the letter he wrote to her 22 years ago. He asks her why she wants to read it if she has a life to get back to, as she angrily claimed just a few moments ago. How much could it possibly mean to her for her to steal it like that? He says it belongs to him, and she can't come into his house and take it. He breaks down in tears, upset and heartbroken. It is then that we come to know that they had a kid all those years ago. He asks her why she up and left after she told him she was pregnant. They were both young, and he needed some time to make a decision. He was scared, and they had their whole life ahead of them, but she just left. They were so happy back then, but they lost everything. He lost everything that ever meant something to him. She comforts him through his anxiety attack as he crouches on the floor, hugging her knees. He apologizes for his outbreak, and she says she's sorry too. It's dawn now, and the sun has broken into the sky to shed light over the town. The trees, the lake, the house, the store, the birds. All things Jim and Amanda once shared and had placed their hopeful future on. They're walking back to their cars, silent, hands in their pockets. But the mood isn't as dark as you'd think it would be after a night of reliving old love and spilling out regretful confessions. They stand there, in front of their respective cars, not knowing what to say to each other. Amanda is the first to break the silence. She wants him to understand that she didn't make the decision on the whim 22 years ago. She sees how hard it was for him, but she was the one who had to experience voluntarily losing her child. She mulled over the decision for ages, tortured and confused. Then his note came in, where he was cracking jokes and making light of the situation. He sent her a get-well-soon balloon too, and she took great offense to it. It was then, she says, that it became clear to her that they were too young to have a serious life together. She knew then that they couldn't raise a child together, and she stands by her decision, no matter how much she has regretted it over the years. In an attempt to console her, he hands her the letter, urging her to read it. The letter details Jim's conviction that they can get through anything together. He writes that he will never stop loving her. It was the first version that he wrote. He chose to send the other letter instead because he was too scared. Her tears are rolling down her face, and when they hit her coat, she realizes this was the first time she cried in 5 years, since she started taking antidepressants. She breaks out into a laugh, and the conversation ends there, with the two of them smiling at each other. We don't know what their future holds, but their past was certainly something to marvel over.